Hello everyone, I'm Arnaud Lauret. I'm from Postman. I'm an API industry researcher at Postman. If you don't know Postman, it's an API platform that you can use for build and use APIs. As Bill mentioned, I'm also the author of a book about API design titled The Design of Web APIs, which was published by Manning in 2019. And I just published the second edition after 3 years of hard work. The second edition is a complete writing, so if you have the first one, I encourage you to buy the second one. There are many new announcements, and including today's topics. To give you an idea, the first edition is Terminator, the movie, and the second edition is Terminator 2. So today, besides shamelessly advertising my book, I'd like to share two big concerns I have when I design APIs. As an API designer, how do I ensure that the API I'm designing will match expectations? And also as an API designer, what can I do to help ensure that the API implementation will match the design and thus the expectations? Besides reading my book, a part of the solution is building an API design reference kit. But before discussing the kit, we need to clarify what is API design, how it relates to implementation, and what do I call expectations. Once you have discussed all that, we will discuss the API design reference kit, how it can be leveraged during design, development, and how it relates to API documentation. It's not specific to today's topic. Anytime you discuss API, it's essential to clarify what is API design, how it relates to developments and other activities that you need to go through to create APIs, and what should be expected with this activity. So to clarify what is API design, I will use an API lifecycle here. So it's a simplification of reality. It's not completely straightforward in reality. You can have back and forth loops, but still, it gives you an idea of the activities you have to go through when creating APIs. So let's start with define phase. Someone decides, okay, we need to create an API, such as, let's say, an API for a social network for cat owners. Then someone at the define stage, an API designer, that's us today, will design an API to meet these needs. On the develop stage, developers, that can also be us with another cap, will create an application that exposes the API that has been designed. Then come the test stage. So throughout development, some people, developers, QA engineers, security experts, will test the API to ensure that it functions properly and securely. Deploy. The API will be deployed, maybe an incomplete version, and obviously a complete version in production, so people can actually test it, for example. And provide consume, an incomplete or a complete API can be available for people to consume it. Regarding my concerns about API design matching expectations, we can split them into 3 layers. The first one is we expect the resulting API to do the right job and hence meet the needs that have been identified during the define stage. It also needs to be versatile, which means it is capable of fulfilling needs that have not yet been identified. The second perspective is that we expect the resulting API to be user-friendly and interoperable. A user-friendly API will represent the domains it works on in a way that makes it easy to understand. It's also easy to use because it will look like and behave consistently with itself and other APIs. And an interoperable APIs also contribute to that aspect by leveraging internal, domain, or global standards. With interoperability, you typically ensure that passing data from one operation or one API to another will be easy and require no or minimal processing. And lastly, we expect the resulting API to consider constraints such as security, efficiency, backward compatibility, and any contextual factors that needs to be integrated into the design to be implementable. For instance, if detecting kittens in a video takes 1 minute per second of video, we need to integrate that into our design. Now that we know what we want to achieve, let's talk about the challenges we may encounter as API designers. The very first challenge involves the define and the design stage of the lifecycle. We can simply end up with an API that doesn't meet the needs identified in the define stage. It doesn't meet the needs because the API doesn't provide the right capabilities. For example, our API may not include the capabilities of identifying kittens in videos, which is crucial for our social network for cat owners. And that usually happens because the define stage, usually what comes out from this stage is just a really coarse-grained description of what we want, a social network for cat owners, without not much detail. So identifying the proper capability is a good start to design an API that will actually meet the needs. But even doing that, we may end with an API that is non-user friendly. We could have 3 different ways of handling errors or uploading files, depending on the operation used. Our design may also not be interoperable. Adding a friend could require a friend ID, and sending a message to a friend may require a friend's username. Using different identifiers makes your API, for representing the same thing, makes your API non-interoperable, and it actually makes it more complicated to use. Another challenge when designing APIs is wasting time discussing again and again the same thing. Pagination, handling errors, how do we do that? The corollary to that is you will likely find, anytime you have this discussion, you may find different solutions to the same problem and make your API inconsistent and possibly deliver them beyond the deadline because you are wasting time discussing and re-implementing the wheel. Once designed, the API has to be developed. And what we typically see during development is that the implementation will expose operations that don't have the expected behavior or data. Operations may return the wrong HTTP status code, or the data that was expected to, let's say, represent the cat owner is not what was initially designed. Security may also be an issue. Bob may be able to see the private messages of Alice and vice versa, while they shouldn't. And at some point during development, we may discover that the feature is not implementable as it was designed initially, due to any issue, typically such as the time it takes to identify kittens in the video. So where does that come from? A stakeholder of the define stage could say, it was not easy to see that we were missing the detect kittens feature because I don't know what all these post/this and get/that are meaning. On the same topic, an API designer could argue that, hey, it was not easy to understand that we need to detect kittens in video when you just send us a sticky note with social network for cat owners. And also, API designers could say, it's hard to remember how we should design things, how we should design search operation, pagination, and all the things we need to care about. It's complicated. And the developers could also argue that based on the input we have, we did our best. We had to fill in the gaps. So one of the causes of all these problems is the lack of exhaustive, clear, and usable information that thoroughly describes an API. And this is typically where the API Design Reference Kit can help us. So let's first see what's in the kit before seeing it in action. An API Design Reference Kit aims to fully describe an API, the interface. It does it with information, artifacts, and possibly tools. It primarily supports the API design process, and it is an essential input for the development and, by extension, the testing of the API implementation. However, it can also be beneficial in other stages of the API lifecycle. We can split this kit into 3 intertwined blocks. The first block relates to needs and capabilities. The API Design Reference Kit aims to clearly describe the API capabilities and contrast them with the often vague initial needs. So the API capabilities are the use case or workflows that you need to fulfill with your API, and which are derived from the initial needs identified during the define stage. These elements rely uniquely on natural language: English, French, Swedish, any language understood by all the stakeholders participating to the discussion. The second block relates to the actual programming interface. So we are switching from searching cats to get/cats. The tricky part here is that people, and especially developers, often think that it is the only thing that matters. That an API description, such as an OpenAPI document, is enough. This may be the case, but only if you leverage all possibilities of OpenAPI to describe your contract exhaustively. And even that way, you may end with an incomplete description. Completing OpenAPI or equivalents such as Async API with API guidelines and information that describes your API standard look and feel and behavior is essential. Leveraging other formats that are more fit to describe workflows and how to use all the operations of your API together is welcome. Typical options are Postman collections, because I'm working for Postman, but you can also leverage specifications such as Arezzo. And optionally, for totally complete interface description, you can add a mock of the yet to be developed API generating from the API description. The last block is often neglected during design, but it's crucial. Without exhaustive and detailed information about operation behavior, the implementation will not match the expectations. A typical gap is incomplete information about errors, when error should happen, how, which error format to use. Another one and deadly gap is security. Who can call which operation? Who can actually see what? Are usually not discussed and neglected during design. And lastly, while we focus on what happens between the consumer and the provider of the API, we must not be blind to implementation constraint. That's the constraint and context and constraint layer I discussed earlier. So if detecting kittens in a video takes 1 minute per second, you need to integrate that into the design by leveraging an asynchronous pattern. Now that we have outlined the what goes into the kit, let's see it in action. So the path from social network targeting cat owners to a set of unique and versatile HTTP operations that will meet these vague needs won't be easily achieved without clearly describing the expectation in natural language. So to achieve that, there are many methods available. So you can use this one, which is the API capabilities canvas, and you basically identify, so we'll not go into all the details here, but you identify the users, their use case or workflows, break them down in steps, identify inputs, outputs, error, and so on. And with all that, you will be able to identify unique operations that will match all these needs. Then when you shift to API description, it's essential to keep natural language descriptions. So typically, if you're using OpenAPI, you need to have summaries on your operation. So that way, all the stakeholders can connect the dots between what was in the API capabilities canvas and what goes into the OpenAPI file and all your HTTP operations. And it's easy to go off-road and have endlessly the same discussion. So you need API design guidelines. That way, you do not discuss pagination again. In your guidelines, you have the recipe to design a search operation, explaining how to manage pagination. And it's nice to have guidelines, but as an API designer, it can be complicated to remember everything. So you can automate part of your guidelines and relieve a part of the burden of remembering everything. But unfortunately, an API linter will not tell you if you are actually meeting needs or using the right pattern, but it can save much time to focus on that. A less known complement to textual and automated guidelines is defining shared components. So with OpenAPI, you can define a kind of library of with your, let's say, standard error data model, 500 responses, such parameters, and you can reference them in your OpenAPI files. It also simplifies linting, because instead of verifying complete data structure in OpenAPI file, you just have to check that you are using the correct reference at the right place. And if you have an OpenAPI definition, it's easy to create a mock using solutions such as Postman or also Microx. So the API design reference kit is helpful for design, but also essential for development. So with the kits, developers can better understand what they have to develop, what they have to implement. We have the API capabilities Canva describing all the features and capabilities of the APIs. You can also, in your OpenAPI files, leverage tags that will organize your operation around business concept, use cases. It could give a few insight about how you will organize your code. Yeah. And it can also help writing code faster, even if you're now using AI. But you have OpenAPI file, JSON schema, and there are code generators that can generate data models, code skeletons, and that way you will not forget a piece of data or have typo in your data. You can also, thanks to the kit, develop more consistently, because the designers work with API design guidelines, which are actually describing the expected behavior and so on. But they can also benefit to developers, because they give these guidelines give a good description of what is expected. And thanks to that, developers realize that, okay, I probably need to develop a library for such operation. So that way, I'm sure that all my such operation will have the same behavior. And you can also streamline the development and testing and ensure secure implementation of your API. With OpenAPI files, you can describe how each operation is secured with security schemes, but this is often used at API gateway level and not really at the implementation level. What developer needs as an input is a description of what should happen given a specific security context. So typically, you can add textual description to your responses to tell, okay, in this context, you will base your response based on this field in a JOT token, which is a security token that is passed to the implementation. You can also add implementers notes, because when discussing the design, you may realize, okay, when retrieving cat owners, be careful because you need to retrieve them based on column X instead of column Y to ensure that we return the proper data. It's not design, okay, but that can happen. It's a discussion that can happen, so you can add it, the input, the output of this discussion to your kit. And you can also have better feedback during development, because thanks to OpenAPI file and so on, it's easy to generate tests. You have a full description of what is supposed to happen. So you can also use that as an input for QA engineers so they can write tests. You can even consider writing the test early during the design, so that way developers can directly use them and have a very quick feedback on their development. And it's the end. So just, is it documentation? Yes, for private APIs, because usually people only have that. But for public APIs, the kit is just an output. And yeah, so it's time to finish. So the last word will be, you have probably more questions than answers thanks to this presentation. So read the book, and also I'm here today and tomorrow, so don't hesitate to come to see me. Thank you.